Hey guys, Joffrey the Giant here. I am in the audio studio where I record audiobooks, hence the weird lighting and weird setting. I want to talk to you guys today about a poet I have discovered that I'm very excited about. He has his first book coming out June the 14th, I think it is, coming out this summer. Below the Brightness. Steven Searcy. So one of the surest measures you can find of how much I've enjoyed a poet, and I'll get specific, but how much I've enjoyed a poet, is if you see my physical copy. Hopefully the camera will show this. Yes, there you go. All those dog ears. Yeah, I am a dog earer. And all these dog ears are for poems I want to be able to access quickly and conveniently sometime in the future. Right? Whether I'm like, okay, what were my favorites again? Or even like, oh, this reminds me of that poem. And I go and I look for it. So I dog ear. And this has experienced thorough dog earification. I could end it there. So, Searcy. I'll read to you the very first poem in the collection. The first and the last poem are usually a good insight into what the poet is trying to do when he writes. And this is his first collection. So the first poem is called Spark. Glow, gentle canticle, in the endless ether. Ring radiant across the radius of curse. Flow faster than lashes. Ride with rigid grasp. The hollows gape and holler as you flash in the shallows, a holy sheen holding steady. They didn't know about you in the new brine we breathe. You heard all that alliteration. He actually sort of reminded me of a kind of a voice I often use. All that alliteration, all that assonance. So the thing I really enjoyed about him was his technicality. And I don't want you to find that initially off-putting. Let me explain. So he's an engineer, which I found interesting. But he is highly aware of technique, and he's playful about it. Okay, that's the fun thing, right? So, and he's not ashamed to just do things, right? I feel like that's so much of the pretentiousness. It's pretension of poetry. It's pretension in the sense of pretending, like pretending to the throne, not pretentiousness in the sense that we use it now. So it's very insecure. He is blithely confident when he writes, and he's quite experimental, but experimental in a technical way. Here's the reason I'm bringing it up. You can tell he's having fun. Whether he's writing a simple nature poem or something more profoundly theological, philosophical, anthropological, he's having fun when he experiments. I will read one example of a form. Really, he's just using these little two stress lines as he goes down. Let's see here. And you could recompose poems like this into couplets, for example. So they look, I think this is one of them. Not the exact form I had in mind, but there you go, right? There's so much alliteration, so much internal rhyme, and he just divides them up into lines. Last century this tree was thin and small, now standing grand and tall. We humans grow so fast, but oh, we do not last. Light but profound. This was a favorite of mine, and this is the form I was thinking of. Okay. The poem called Moon. There it is, Moon. And you could easily divide it into a quatrain, 2 lines of 4 stresses, 2 lines of 3 stresses. But he's laid it out this way, and it emphasizes the internal workings of each line, among other things. I think the stretching out of the lines actually has its own effect as well. But moon. This night in June, the moon is quite a bright balloon, but soon the light of day will banish her beams, and they will vanish like dreams. There's an internal music and an external music there. You can hear the rhymes at the ends. I'll read it more slowly. So notice basically that this is like a sonnet. It's the requisite number of lines. And then that's what I mean by he's playful. Maybe he's imitating a form. But I'm imitating him now. I've written a couple of poems like this. That's how highly I think of this guy. But so this night in June, the moon is quite. So he's got an A-B-B-A going on. And so there's like an internal thing happening if you think of it as a couplet, which is not. He's put it in 4 lines. So it's A-B-B-A, and then again, the same exact A-B-B-A. Night and quite are the A's in the first verse, bright and light in the second one. And then the third and fourth verses, which are 3 lines each, of day will banish her beams, and they will vanish like dreams. Okay, so that is a C-D-E, C-D-E. It's Petrarchan, I believe. I think that's a Petrarchan sonnet. I'll read it again for you more slowly. Moon. This night in June, the moon is quite a bright balloon, but soon the light of day will banish her beams, and they will vanish like dreams. Lovely. He excels in writing nature poetry, which perhaps because of my knee-jerk reaction against the transcendentals I've never gotten into. How dreary, like a frog. But yeah, he does it beautifully and well, and experimentally. Then he also has, longer meditative type things. The last poem of his I'll read to you is going to be Tabernacle. So that our weak and wounded eyes could know the brilliant beauty blazing bright above, and not be burned or blinded by that light which shines unceasing, God decides to show himself in part so we might glimpse his love in full. A veil reveals him to our sight. Wonderful cloaking. Words cannot convey the way the incandescent image dims. He stoops to wrap himself in rags of skin, to coat his gorgeous gleam in cracking clay. He hides his holy glow in humble limbs, and meekly mingles in the mess of men. He drops into our darkened world to dwell, covert in carnal camouflage. He bends to enter earth so we can see and hear his grace. He welcomes pain to make us well. Enfolded in frail flesh, our Lord descends. Look at how our kind King Christ comes near. There's a strong meter, a rhyme scheme. But perhaps the thing that stood out to you the most there was the alliteration. This dude gets English. He gets the Anglo-Saxonness of English and the immediacy, the driving rhythm and the exaltation that can come through just a simple use of alliteration. Guys, I'm so impressed with this guy, and I will be accompanying his work. So when this comes out, I highly recommend it to you. Below the Brightness, Steven Searcy. The peace of Christ be upon you.
What day is it today? Remind me.
It's Sunday, Mr. Pinch.
Sunday. And what do we do on a Sunday morning, wherever we happen to be? We go to church, you bloody heathen!